Violet sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel as she checked the time on the dashboard. It was 6:02 a.m. She took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. She had been planning this trip for years, and today was finally the day. She was taking her parents on a dream vacation, a trip she had saved for, worked extra hours for, and carefully planned down to the smallest detail. It was supposed to be a special time for them as a family. As she pulled up to the driveway, her mother stepped out onto the porch, dragging her suitcase behind her. Her face was unreadable as she looked at Violet. "You're late," her mom said in a matter-of-fact tone. Violet forced a small smile. 2 minutes, Mom." She got out of the car to help load the luggage into the trunk, but then she saw something that made her stop in her tracks. Her younger sister, Lauren, was also walking out of the house, pulling her own suitcase behind her. Violet's heart dropped. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice tight with confusion. Her mother turned to her with a bright smile, as if this was just another ordinary morning. "Oh, Violet, we decided that Lauren should go on the trip instead of you. She's been so stressed lately, and she really needs a break." Violet felt like the air had been knocked out of her. "Instead of me? Mom, I've been planning this for years. I paid for everything." Her mother waved her hand as if Violet's words were unimportant. "We're grateful, sweetheart, but you're always working so hard. You can take another trip later. Lauren needs this right now." Violet's hands clenched into fists at her sides. Lauren didn't even look guilty. She just smirked and tilted her head. "Thanks for understanding, sis," she said in a fake sweet voice. Violet turned toward her father, hoping for some kind of support. He was standing near the car, avoiding eye contact. He sighed and handed her his suitcase without saying a word. Violet's voice trembled with anger. "This is unbelievable. This was supposed to be our trip, a chance for me to do something special for you. And it still is," her mother said as if nothing was wrong, "just with Lauren instead. Don't make this a big deal, Violet. Your sister really needs this." Violet stood there, feeling a cold realization wash over her. She had spent years working extra shifts, saving every penny to give her parents a luxurious vacation. She had poured her heart into planning the perfect experience for them, but in the end, none of it mattered, because no matter what she did, Lauren would always come first in their eyes. Violet swallowed back the sharp words she wanted to say. Instead, she forced a tight smile and opened the trunk. "Let's get going then." She didn't argue anymore. If they wanted to replace her with Lauren, fine, but she wasn't going to make it easy for them. The drive to the airport was silent, except for Lauren's excited chatter. "Mom, did you see that TikTok about Paris? I can't wait to go shopping there. Do you think we'll have time, or will the tours take up the whole day?" Violet's grip on the steering wheel tightened. She focused on the road, refusing to join the conversation. Her mother chuckled. "Of course, we'll have time. We'll figure it out when we get there." Violet bit her lip. They didn't even notice she wasn't included in that anymore. At one point, her father cleared his throat. "Thank you for driving us, Violet. I know this probably feels unusual." Violet met his eyes in the rearview mirror. "Unusual, that's an interesting word for it, Dad." He looked away, shifting uncomfortably in his seat. Lauren, however, had no problem filling the silence. She leaned forward, resting her chin on the seat. "You're not mad, right? I mean, this is really big of you, letting me go. I could never afford this on my own." Violet clenched her jaw and forced another fake smile. "Of course, Lauren, enjoy the trip." By the time they arrived at the airport, Violet's patience was almost gone. She got out and helped unload the luggage. Her mother hugged her as if nothing had happened. "Thank you for understanding, sweetheart. This means a lot to us, and to Lauren." Violet nodded stiffly. "Sure, Mom." Lauren grinned as she grabbed her suitcase. "Thanks, Violet, you're the best." Violet stood still, watching as they disappeared into the airport terminal. Her chest ached with a mixture of anger and pain. The drive home was a blur. Her mind replayed everything over and over, making her stomach churn. "This means a lot to Lauren. You're not mad, right? You're always working so hard." She pulled into her driveway and sat in the car for a long time, gripping the steering wheel so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Then, without a second thought, she got out, went inside, and opened her laptop. She logged into every travel account she had used to book the trip. Hotel reservations, cancelled. Tours, refunded. Flight upgrades, gone. One by one, she undid everything she had planned. As the cancellation emails filled her inbox, a sense of satisfaction spread through her. They wanted to replace her, fine, but they wouldn't be staying in five-star hotels or enjoying private tours on her dime. When she finally closed her laptop, she let out a deep breath. They could explain themselves to the hotel staff in Paris. She was done being their doormat. I let out a dry, bitter laugh, shaking my head. You're right, this isn't like me, because for once, I'm not bending over backward to fix a mess I didn't make. There was a pause on the other end of the line. For a brief moment, I thought my father might finally understand, that maybe, just maybe, he would see my side of things for once, but that hope disappeared the moment he spoke again. You're punishing the whole family over one decision. Is that really fair? Fair, I repeated, my voice rising in disbelief. You want to talk about fair? Was it fair when you and Mom decided I wasn't important enough to be part of the trip I planned? Was it fair when you replaced me with Lauren like I didn't even matter? That's not what we were trying to do, he said defensively. We just thought Lauren needed it more. I clenched my fists so tightly that my nails dug into my palms. Of course you did. You always think she needs more attention, more support, more of everything, and I'm always the one expected to sacrifice for her. Well, not anymore. Silence, heavy, suffocating silence. Finally, he sighed. I don't know what you want me to say. I don't need you to say anything, I replied, my voice steady now. I just need you to understand that I'm done being the afterthought. From now on, I come first. Goodbye, Dad. I ended the call and set my phone down on the counter. My hands were trembling, but I wasn't sure if it was from anger, sadness, or relief, maybe all three. I let myself feel them all, waves of emotions crashing over me. It wasn't easy, but it felt like the start of something new, something I should have done years ago. For the first time, I wasn't the family's fixer, and I wasn't going to be. Days passed, and then finally, my parents and Lauren returned from their trip. I was waiting for them. I had parked in their driveway, a cup of coffee in hand, feeling strangely calm. Their taxi pulled up, and I watched as they climbed out, dragging their suitcases behind them. They looked exhausted and irritated. Lauren spotted me first, her face twisted into a frown. Well, I hope you're happy, Violet. I raised an eyebrow, remaining seated on the porch swing. Happy about what? The trip was a disaster, my mom snapped. She waved her hand dismissively as if to brush away the entire experience. We had to stay in cheap hotels and eat terrible food because we couldn't afford anything better. And the tours? Lauren cut in, folding her arms across her chest. Oh, wait, there weren't any. Do you know how embarrassing it was to show up and be told we had no reservations? I took another sip of coffee, letting their complaints roll over me. Sounds rough, I said calmly, but you wanted to take Lauren, remember? I'm sure you all had some great bonding time. My mom's expression darkened. That's not the point, she snapped. You knew we couldn't afford the things you planned. You set us up to fail. I stood up, setting my mug down with a quiet clink. No, Mom, I didn't set you up for anything. I planned a trip for the three of us, something special I'd saved up for years. You were the ones who decided to cut me out at the last second. My dad, who had been silent up until now, finally spoke. His voice was quieter, but no less accusing. You didn't have to cancel everything, Violet. That was extreme. I tilted my head. Was it? Why should I have paid for a trip I wasn't even invited on? If Lauren needed it so badly, you should have planned it yourselves. Honestly, you're lucky I didn't cancel the return flight too. Lauren rolled her eyes. You're so dramatic. It's just money, Violet. My patience snapped. And you're so entitled. Do you have any idea how much work and sacrifice went into planning that trip, or do you just assume things magically appear for you because someone else takes care of it? They were silent, caught off guard. I've spent years being the responsible one, I continued, my voice unwavering, the one who fixes things, plans things, makes sure everything runs smoothly, and you've spent just as long taking it all for granted. That's not fair, my mom started, but I held up a hand, cutting her off. No, Mom, what's not fair is how you treated me. You chose Lauren over me, just like always, so I chose to stop being your doormat. You didn't want me on the trip? Fine, but you don't get to enjoy the benefits of my hard work without me. I picked up my bag and turned toward my car. I'm glad you made it back safely, but don't expect things to go back to how they were. I'm done. As I walked away, I heard them calling after me, anger, guilt, desperation laced in their voices. But I didn't look back. The drive home felt different, lighter. For years, every visit had drained me, left me feeling empty, but this time, I felt free. Back at my house, I made a cup of tea and curled up on my couch, replaying the confrontation in my head. They had expected me to cave, to apologize, to make things right again, but I hadn't, and their stunned faces were proof that they had never really believed I could stand up for myself. Maybe a part of me hadn't believed it either, until now. The next day, my phone rang. "Grace. How'd it go?" she asked, skipping the pleasantries. I chuckled, leaning against my kitchen counter. "Exactly like you'd imagine. They're furious, Lauren's pouting, and Mom is probably trying to figure out how to guilt me back into line." Grace snorted. "Let her try. You've got a backbone now, and I'm here to make sure it stays in place." I grinned, grateful for her unwavering support. "Thanks, Grace. Really, you've been my rock through all of this." "Anytime," she said, her voice softer now. "So, what's next for you, now that you're not playing family fixer anymore?" That question had been swirling in my mind since the confrontation. For so long, my energy had been focused on trying to earn my family's approval. Now that I had let go of that burden, the possibilities seemed endless, and a little intimidating. "I don't know yet," I admitted, "but for the first time, I feel like I get to decide. Not them, not anyone else, just me." "Sounds like the start of something amazing," Grace said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. For the first time in a long time, I believed it too.